Great. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We're a little late getting started, and apologies. I'm Dina Cappiello. I'm the Chief Communications and Marketing Officer for the Rocky Mountain Institute, RMI. And today we're going to be talking about the very important issue of energy efficiency and where we stand from the double-down commitment of the last COP. Since we are short on time, I'm going to quickly introduce the speakers, turn it over to them, and then we'll hopefully have some time for questions. And if we don't, please feel free to approach them as they exit the room. So the speakers for this afternoon are John Kreitz, second to my right, the CEO of RMI. We're also pleased to have with us Bruce Douglas, who is the CEO of the Global Renewables Alliance. To the far, far right, on the other end of the panel, is Lisa Jacobson, who's the president of the Business Council on Sustainable Energy. And last but not least, to my direct right is Kofi Ajorku. I was trained on this. I hope I did it right, guys. Director of Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency and Climate Change for Ghana. So, John, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of set the stage and for what we're talking about today and where we are on energy efficiency.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dina, and welcome, everyone. At COP29, 116 countries committed to double the average annual rate of efficiency capture globally from about 2% to over 4% every year until 2030. This ambitious goal is crucial to meeting the Paris Agreement targets and ensuring an affordable path to a sustainable future. Improving energy efficiency in industry, buildings, transport, grids, and power generation could generate nearly half, or about 45% of the emissions reductions required by the Paris Agreement, according to the IEA. Every kilowatt hour we save through efficiency saves 3 times as much carbon at the back end due to the incredible inefficiency of the current fossil fuel system. Literally, $4.6 trillion a year, or 5% of global GDP, goes up in smoke. Yet energy efficiency hasn't received the attention it urgently needs. Unlike the tripling renewables goal, doubling the pace of energy efficiency by 2030 has been lacking leadership and credible plans from governments, and it's missing from NDCs, which all feels like a significant oversight. Not only is the potential for energy efficiency vast and untapped, but we're also far off on track to meet the doubling goal. The world achieved only 2% energy efficiency gain in 2022, and this rate fell to 1% in 2023, according again to the IEA statistics. Instead of doubling down, efficiency improvements are actually slowing down, making them more challenging to reach our climate goals. Energy efficiency is the most important lever not being pulled right now. It will make the entire energy transition cheaper, faster, fairer, and more secure. And whether you're trying to build more data centers, electrify buildings, transport, or industry, or increase access in underserved regions, efficiency is the one tool that can deliver the fastest and lowest cost under all scenarios. For example, in emerging markets, appliance efficiency alone could save 1/3 of new demand by 2035. If we flip that on its head from a productivity perspective, it would support a 50% increase in appliance penetration on an equivalent grid infrastructure. Wherever we stand in the world, energy efficiency must be our first fuel, making every energy investment go further. If we're serious about delivering on the doubling goal, then it's time to join forces across governments, companies, and organizations, because only together can we realize its full potential.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Jacobson. I'm president of the Business Council for Sustainable Energy, and I'm so pleased to be here with my colleagues in the energy efficiency industries and also in the renewable energy industries. We're going to hear from Bruce in a moment. But I want to talk about mission efficiency, which is a coalition that we launched that works with international organizations, civil society, the private sector, and finance organizations. We are unified in our support to champion energy efficiency as a cornerstone of the energy transition. This coalition aims to call on parties to the Paris Agreement to more than double the rate of energy efficiency improvement globally every year through a suite of actionable measures, particularly in mobilizing finance for efficiency measures. We call on parties to translate the Dubai Energy Package into their revised NDCs, including ambitious national efficiency targets, roadmaps, and actions before COP30 to maximize the social and economic benefits of energy efficiency and ensure a just energy transition. We affirm that to double energy efficiency, it is required to triple investment to more than $1.8 US per year by 2030, and call on the financial community to ramp up investment in energy efficiency. We also recognize the COP's Troika leadership in advancing Mission 1.5C and urge continued and intensified efforts to accelerate energy efficiency progress to ensure the successful implementation of the first global stocktake outcomes. The Business Council for Sustainable Energy has been part of this process since its inception. When the organization was founded in 1992, executives from the energy efficiency, renewable energy, natural gas, and decarbonization technologies went to that summit to say, we have technology that is available today that can deliver on environmental, climate, and other important energy and economic goals. That message is clearer and louder today than ever. So we urge the opportunity to work across industries to make sure that the Dubai Energy Package is realized in the nationally determined contributions. Our businesses are working where we're based in North America, but around the world, serving customers and making people's lives better. And that is why energy efficiency really is the cornerstone of the energy transition. And we cannot meet our other goals without making sure we're incorporating demand-side solutions. Last point I would make is we have a unique opportunity with new technologies, digital solutions that can optimize our energy systems. And these are available to all. And so the Business Council for Sustainable Energy is committed to working with governments and other stakeholders and communities to make sure they have access to affordable, clean, secure, reliable energy technologies, including and starting with energy efficiency. Thank you. Bruce.
Thank you very much. So the combination of doubling energy efficiency and tripling renewable energy is the fastest and most cost-effective way to decarbonize the global power system by 2030. This is a critical decade. It's also the most powerful way to transition away from fossil fuels. Without the doubling of energy efficiency, it will be an energy addition using fossil fuels and not an energy transition. So our current way of operating is unsustainable and irrational. More than 2/3 of the energy produced ends up being wasted through inefficient production and consumption processes. Why? Because our world is still using outdated infrastructure and systems that were invented 120 years ago at the beginning of the oil era. Thermal engines, badly insulated buildings, inefficient heating and cooling, without even mentioning the obsolete industrial processes and dirty energy sources. As we stand at a critical juncture in the global energy transition, the urgency for ambitious action has never been more pronounced. Achieving our dual targets of tripling renewable energy capacity and doubling energy efficiency by 2030 will enable the phase-out of fossil fuels and deliver 80% of the emissions reductions necessary to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. This goal is vital for securing a sustainable, inclusive, and economically resilient future, particularly for emerging markets and developing economies. Now, I'm from the renewable energy industry, so I'll talk 1 second about the tripling of renewables goal. And it was mentioned that that was a huge success. It was, but very little has been done in terms of action between COP28 and today. We understand that only one country, which is Namibia, has actually increased their renewable targets in the last 12 months to align with that ambition. So the good news is we have the technology, it's cost competitive and deployable at scale. We also know what policies work that can enable the deployment of renewables. It's growing fast, but we are way off track from the tripling goal. So there's a huge lost opportunity. There's a number of barriers that we've identified, including lack of demand, permitting. It still takes longer to permit a wind farm in many jurisdictions than it does to build it. That's crazy in a climate crisis. Grids and storage, there's over 3,000 gigawatts of renewable projects waiting for grid connection. Supply and the supply chain, and finally financing, and especially the financial flows to emerging markets. So although renewables are cost competitive, the cost of capital and often the perceived risk and country risk within the emerging markets and developed economies is too high. So it's time for action. And there is an opportunity, and that was touched on just before by Dina, which is the NDCs. So that's an obligation on countries to update their climate plans by February next year. It needs to include ambition. So we need to translate global commitment into national ambition. It needs to be specific, so specific renewable energy and energy efficiency targets. And finally, and most importantly, action. So that's detailed energy plans, where, how much, which technologies. We then, as a private sector, are willing to deploy trillions of dollars of capital at risk if we see clear investment signals. Investor confidence is critical for us to invest, and we will then do so. The winners of the future energy competition in countries will be those who capture the current opportunity. And the NDCs is one very short-term and clear way to do that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Having listened to all the speakers, I'm going to share with you practical results of energy efficiency implementation. I'm going to give you a case study. And I'm from Ghana, as you have been told already. The drivers of energy, just like any other country, population growth, urbanization, and economic growth. And this aptly describes the situation in Ghana. We have a history of cheap hydroelectric power way back in 1966. Where we have 920 megawatt of power for only 5 million people. Today, we are 33 million and still counting. So in 1996, it became obvious that the cheap hydropower alone could not power the economy, and for that matter, meet the needs of the growing population. So we introduced thermal complementation. And that is when it dawned on us to start finding ways and means of arresting demand growth of energy. So we opted for energy efficiency for very good reasons, because energy efficiency is a cheaper option from any other means that you can think of. And it is a low-hanging fruit. Energy efficiency itself is efficient because comparing the input-output ratio, I mean, you get to know that it is efficient. You put in a little, and the outcome is quite big. So we invested in MEPS, Minimum Energy Performance Standards. And we started in 2005 with only 3 appliances. Along the line, we added 1 to make 4. But there was a leapfrog in 2022 where we increased the tally from 4 to 20. So now we have 20 appliances, including renewable energy products that have all come under our appliance standards and labeling regime. And I am very happy to report that between 2010 and 2023, the implementation of energy efficiency policy has saved Ghana over 12,000 gigawatt hours. And the carbon avoided emission is also in the region of 7 million tons. So that is how far we have come to. This lends credence to the fact that it is cheaper to conserve than to just keep expanding generation capacity. Yes, renewable energy is good, it's excellent, but it is not a sustainable way of arresting demand. It adds onto generation capacity so as to meet demand. But when talking about energy efficiency actually controls demand, so that even though there's going to be demand growth, energy efficiency ensures that the growth occurs at a reducing rate. And that is what energy efficiency does. Ghana is one of the few countries that have incorporated energy efficiency into our NDCs. And having even increased the tally from 4 to 20, plans are far advanced to revise the NDCs to incorporate all these appliances that have come under the appliance label and standards regime to make the NDCs very robust. And in terms of investment mobilization, we did a test run for how we can increase investment in the energy efficiency space. And we implemented a project that we call Eco Fridges. And that was used as a special purpose vehicle to increase the uptake of super efficient appliances in homes. And I can report that now the investment mobilized is in the region of about $1.8 million. To conclude, I would say that energy efficiency is the unseen turbine that generates clean power at a cheaper cost. And I will encourage countries that are yet to commit themselves to energy efficiency to do so. I know that it is not a bread and butter issue, but the rate at which the globe is warming, if we lose it, we don't have any planet to live on so as to enjoy bread and butter. The earlier we act, the better it will be for all of us. Thank you very much.
I'm going to turn it to the audience now if there's any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to take moderator's priority and ask the question myself. Okay, I am going to ask the following question. That was an amazing story that you just shared about the progress made in Ghana. I'm going to start with you, Kofi, but I want to hear from the others. You know, why, with that kind of result in such a short time frame, do you think this is not more of a priority issue? And then I'd like to hear the other panelists. Like, you know, even at Climate Week in New York, we heard a lot about supply, more supply, more supply. I know some reporters in the audience reported yesterday about carbon emissions going up, right? Because there isn't the reduction in demand in part. So tell me what's it going to take? Why hasn't that kind of taken hold, and what's it going to take to have it take hold?
Yes, energy efficiency is yet to gain grounds amongst a lot of nations because, excuse my language, it is not as sexy as renewable energy. You know, renewable energy, you can do Photoshop on a turbine, a solar farm, and all the fanfare that comes with it. But with energy efficiency, you don't see anything. Everything is buried, but you look at results. And that is why there is a need to do a lot more campaign on energy efficiency. I don't want to say that we should do that at the expense of renewable energy, no. But it is instructive to note that without energy efficiency, renewable energy is baseless. You need to do energy efficiency to be able to have a lot of appliances that can be applicable to renewable energy. If you have appliances that are gasless, energy gasless, it makes nonsense of renewable energy. So the bottom line is energy efficiency. And I think that we need to do a lot of messaging for people to understand that the base is energy efficiency before you talk of renewable energy. Then renewable energy becomes the dessert and not the main course.
Kofi, I just love your analogies. I love that the turbine analogy. It is that turbine that generates low-cost, clean energy, and we cannot afford to use it. So, you know, I guess I would like to talk about an opportunity side. We're having a conversation that has shifted in North America and perhaps globally about going from a situation where we were not increasing our energy consumption to one where we anticipate, due to some really important economic and other developments, increased energy consumption. And that provides an opportunity for energy efficiency in a new way. Because as we contemplate both progressing with supply-side solutions like renewable energy, we will not be able to meet growing load at the pace we need to, especially in the short term, if we are not reducing and managing demand. And as I said before, there is such potential now, both, well, because of our increased load, but also because of optimization technologies and AI to make our systems so much more efficient. So our hope is that is yet again another wake-up call that says energy efficiency is first and foremost on our minds as we think about energy systems. The last comment I'll make is, yes, in the United States, for example, in the period between the 2001 to 2012, we had hockey stick, dramatic increases in energy efficiency investment throughout the economy and an uptick in energy efficiency policies, be it building code improvements or energy efficiency standards. That basically went flat about 2015. But what we did in the United States by passing the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act is we went across the economy and looked for both incentives for the private sector and communities to invest in energy efficiency, and we opened it up to homeowners in a historic way, $27 billion in rebate programs to allow homeowners and small businesses to utilize energy efficiency technologies, make it more affordable and more accessible. We've not realized the benefits of that. So my hope is, with those historic efforts, in addition to what's happening at the state and local level in the United States, we're going to see a return to this really important uptick in energy efficiency.
Yeah, I would say, to use an analogy here, our energy system's a bathtub. We have a big leak in it, and we keep turning up the faucet, right? And that is the way that we're designed. There are a whole host of reasons that I can give you of why it is difficult to capture energy efficiency, from split incentives in the built environment where the owner doesn't necessarily bear the cost for, or the renter doesn't bear the cost for actual equipment, through to priority issues where energy efficiency and picking up nickels doesn't quite compare to the prospect of earning dollars or $100 bills on other areas. We see lots of different challenges that exist there. And for me, the antidote, yes, we need financing, yes, we need awareness, but we do need policy leadership, without question. And when I look, I'm a fellow American here, when I look at the United States and the greatest single climate achievement that the United States has produced so far in greenhouse gas reductions was actually produced under a Republican administration in 2007 under the Energy Independence and Security Act, which focused expressly on efficiency and looked at ways that the U.S. could upgrade its policy or its appliance standards, looked at ways that it could propagate new and more efficient motors, looked at ways for it to save energy across the economy and industry through new and better benchmarks. These are the types of things, when policy is set in NDCs and flows down through to specific, ambitious, high-profile actions by countries, you get to the result that we heard about here in Ghana. And that's what we'd be really, really trying to provoke and also invite leaders here today, is to recognize this as a primary resource, whether you're interested in energy security, whether you're interested in affordability, whether you're interested in access, whether you're interested in the end in being able to feed new data centers, provide electrification, or provide just basic services. Energy efficiency is the first fuel that you can achieve more quickly than any other, that actually provides more secure prospects for long-term prosperity.
Yes, thank you very much. Why energy efficiency is still not a priority, I will lay the blame squarely on the doorsteps of policy advisors. Why am I saying so? I think that more often than not, the way policy advisors communicate is not good enough. You don't go to the policymaker and start speaking jargons about gigawatts, megawatts, carbon dioxide. They don't have any relevance to him. What is relevant to him, because he's thinking of the next election, what is relevant to him is that with that savings, how does that translate into money? And what can the money do for me to win the next election? So you need to understand that and communicate better to get the buy-in of the policymakers so that they will give you the support to do energy efficiency implementation.
Thank you all very, very much. If there's any questions for the speakers, please pull them aside as they exit, and I know our time is up. So thank you for coming. Really appreciate it.